All right, so our goal here is to learn to use the quadratic formula. And these notes are going to take us a couple of pages because we're going to slowly build up to the quadratic formula. But I want to show you where we are headed. So can I get you guys all to flip over to the second page of the notes, which is right behind this one, and have a look at these equations down at the bottom of the page. We are going to be solving these equations using the quadratic formula. Now these look an awful lot like the warm-ups that we just did. Would you agree? Except you'll notice there's not a whole lot of space between them because instead of doing all those steps that I showed you just a moment ago with the x and the x box and all of this fun stuff, we're just going to be using the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula is this. And you are going to memorize this. Okay? This is the formula, and you're going to memorize it. Notice it has A's and B's and C's in it. Where do you think we're going to get the numbers for A and B and C? Have we seen any A's and B's and C's in any of the work that we've done so far? And I've encouraged you to write them down, and that's because when we do the quadratic formula, we're going to be using those exact same numbers. So there is a song for this that's going to help you memorize it. Would you like to hear it? This is going to be really awkward for everybody, including me. All right, you guys know the Pop Goes the Weasel song? Yeah? All right, so here we go. I'm gonna sing this song for you. All right, so x is the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You got it? You want to sing it with me? No. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then you sing that to yourself every time you do this and you'll have it down. Okay, my pre-calculus students, when they have to use this, we're taking a test, I'll hear someone humming them, and because they're trying to remember the quadratic formula. So we'll come back and we'll practice that in a minute, but let's build up to it because I think you'll agree this is kind of a messy looking formula. We want to make sure we understand all the pieces and parts. So we're going to take this piece by piece. Let's start with some basic stuff. Square roots. Do you guys know how to find square roots of stuff? So we're back to that front page. What is the square root of 4? Square root of 4 is 2. Because 2 times 2 is 4. What's the square root of 81? 9. Go ahead and do the last 2 there. Find the square root of 100. Find the square root of 1 for me. What'd you get? 10 and thank you. Now, what if I asked you to find something like the square root of 30? What is the square root of 30? It's not going to be a nice whole number, but could you do it in your calculator? Type it in your calculator and get a decimal for me. We're going to be rounding to 3 decimal places today. So if you don't remember the square root button, there's 2 of them. We're just doing a square root, so we want the one without the x. So it's over the x squared button. If you've got one of these yellow calculators, you have to hit second x squared. And I'm going to type in 30 and hit enter. And it didn't give me a decimal. Oh no, how do I make it give me a decimal? Hit the double arrow thing above the enter key and that'll turn it into a decimal for me. That is about 5.477. Actually, should this last 7 bump up to an 8? Should I bump that last 7 up to an 8? You got to look at the number after it. That number is not 5 or more, so we're going to keep it at a 7. If that 2 had been like an 8 or a 9, then we would have bumped that 7 up to an 8. All right, so you guys can take square roots? Awesome. Can we solve equations with square roots? Let's see if we can. X squared equals 25. Can you think of a number that you can multiply times itself to equal 25? 5 works. X equals 5 is a solution. There is another. What is another number that you can multiply times itself to equal 25? Negative 5 also works. Interesting. It turns out that when you have an equation that looks like this, x squared equals a number, you're always going to have 2 solutions. This is just in our packet. So when we solve this, what we're going to do is we're going to take a square root on both sides, but when we do that, we're always going to have a plus or minus here. Now, I didn't have you do this before because it didn't make sense before, but starting here, we've got to do this. So it's always going to be plus or minus whatever this is. What is the square root of 16? 4. So x equals plus or minus 4. That means, when you see this, what that means is x equals positive 4 and x equals negative 4. That's what that's saying. Plus or minus 4 means both. One version's got a plus, one version's got a minus. There's actually two answers there. Can you guys go ahead and solve the rest of these equations for me, please? Take a square root on both sides, and then when you do that, make sure that you give your answer as a plus or minus. Use your calculator if you need to. I don't know what the square root of 10 is. Hey. How much? Is this enough? Mm-hmm. All right. How do we do? How did I do? Do you guys agree with my answers? Did you guys put plus or minus in front of each of those answers? Does anybody like writing them out separately better? X equals 1 and x equals negative 1? If that's your style, go for it. I like it this way because it's less writing I got to do, but I hope that all of you that are writing it this way also know when you see plus or minus 5.477, that means both positive 5.477 and negative 5.477. Okay? So why were we doing this right now? Flip back to that page behind here. I just want to keep in mind what we're going for. We're going to end up using something that has a plus or minus and a square root in it. That's why it's got a plus or minus and a square root in it. Okay? Let's just sing this song one more time. I'm going to get this burned into your memory today. I know it hurts. I know. But it's all right. It's going to help you. X equals the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right. So the next thing we're going to practice is sort of the messiest part of this whole formula is the part that's underneath the square root. We're going to practice just doing the part under the square root right now. Okay? So flip back to the page before it. Sorry. Keep making you guys flip around. Are you following me? Some of you are already on this. You're working ahead of me. That's all right. All right, and number 3, we're going to do the b squared minus 4ac. In order to do that, we've got to come up with numbers for a and b and c. We've practiced this already, but I'm going to have you guys go ahead and practice this one more time for me. Could you please fill out the numbers for a, b, and c in that row, that third row of your table there, if you haven't already? Remember, a and b and c are just the coefficients and constants in your quadratic. So in this case, a is positive 2, b is positive 6, and c is positive 9. Now, they're not always going to be positive, so watch your signs. Take a moment, please, right now, and go ahead and fill out a, b, and c for equation b and equation c. Make sure you're keeping those negatives on there where they're appropriate. Equation C's got some invisible ones. Did that give you guys any trouble? Were you able to see the invisible ones on the A and the B there? Quick check. A and B and C will never have variables in them. Did anybody accidentally put any x's or x squareds in your A and B and C? Go ahead and erase those. That's okay. That's a really easy mistake to make at the beginning. A and B and C are just the numbers. They will never have variables. So if you accidentally, for example, put an x after that -2, that's okay. Just erase it. Learn from your mistake. All right, I'm going to give you the biggest hint, the most helpful hint that you're going to see for this whole lesson right here, okay? And some of you are going to pay attention to me and follow this hint, and some of you are not. And this will be the #1 difference between people who get right answers and people who get wrong answers on this, okay? So your choice, but here is your hint. When we go to do b squared minus 4ac, I need you to put all 3 of those variables in parentheses. When you go to plug those numbers in, they need to be in parentheses. If you don't do this, then you just type them straight into your calculator, you're going to get wrong answers about half the time, okay? So just get in the habit right now of, before you even write any numbers down, set it up. Write parentheses squared minus 4 parentheses parentheses. And once you've got it all formatted, then put your numbers in there. So B was 6, A was 2, and C was 9. And then go to your parentheses or your calculator and type it in with the parentheses. Now some of you might be able to pull this off with some mental math. I know some of you have some pretty strong mental math. Let's see if I can do this mentally. That's 36. That's 36 times 2 is 72. I think it's going to be -36. Woo! Nailed it. All right. Please, please, please follow my advice. When you're putting stuff into b squared minus 4ac, set it up with the parentheses first, then put the numbers in, then put it into your calculator. If you put it in a calculator without the parentheses, you're going to get wrong answers. Specifically, if anybody's curious, the specific part that you will get wrong answers for is if you have a -b value and you don't put parentheses around it when you square it in your calculator, it's going to give you the wrong answer. Okay? It's not that your calculator is incorrect, it's that it thinks that you want it to square it before you put the negative on it. We want to square the negative. So the parentheses are key here. That's 4, and that's 20 times 7 is 140. It'll be positive 100. I think it's 144. I think. Does that sound right? I'm going to check in my calculator. I'm pretty sure it's 144. And I'm getting a couple nods that they agree, so. Nice. All right, last one here. B squared minus 4ac. B is 1. A is 1. C is -2. Oh, this one I can definitely do in my head. That's 1. This is going to be positive because it's a negative times a negative. Positive 8. This is 9. How are we feeling, folks? So far, so good? All right, why did we practice that? Well, the most complicated part of our whole equation is the b squared minus 4ac part. All right, flipping over. So the way we're going to handle this in a minute is we're going to do the b squared minus 4ac separately, and then we're going to end up with an equation that just looks like this. So I just want to practice putting these into our calculator and getting an answer for this. Okay. So let me give you a big hint with this. You guys with me? Don't miss this hint, please. When you put this into your calculator, we're going to use a division sign for the fraction bar. But we must put parentheses around the top, and to be safe, we should put parentheses around the bottom also. So I'm going to type this into my calculator, but I'm going to put an extra set of parentheses around the top and the bottom, and I'm just going to use the division key in my calculator where the fraction bar was. So I'll show you what it looks like. So parentheses, 12 plus square root 10. Make sure you move your cursor out from underneath the square root before you close your parenthesis. Divided by 2. And then hit your double arrows to get your decimal. And you should be getting something that looks like this. I forgot to put the 2 in parentheses. Yes, I should do that. Let me go back. I'll tell you, if it's a single number, it does not have to be in parentheses. But if there's 2 things down there, then you do. But I am trying to get you guys in the habit of just always putting parentheses so you don't ever have to worry about whether it should be there or not. Thank you for reminding me. You should be getting an arrow. You might have to hit your double arrow button, but you should be getting an answer about 7.58. Is anybody not getting that answer? I know some of you have some different styles of calculators. Are you guys getting that same answer? Yes, are you getting that same answer? Were you getting that same answer? No? Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so see how you've got your, do you mind if I put this up on the screen? Because several other, is that okay? A lot of you have this style of calculator. So let me show you this. Yes, and that's it. Just what you just said. So it sounds like you figured it out. So if you get a style calculator like this, it's going to put a parenthesis automatically around this at the beginning of the square root here. So see right after that, right before that 10 is your parenthesis to start the square root. And then this parenthesis that you put in here ends the square root, but we don't have we need another parenthesis to end the top of the fraction here. So I need to squeeze one more in there, and I can do second ints and squeeze it in like that. So when you type, if you've got this style of calculator, you're actually going to end up with 2 parentheses up here. This first one's closing the parenthesis on the square root, and the second one's closing the parenthesis on the top of the fraction. And you got the same answer. Thank you for letting me show that. Are we all able to get that same answer now? Yes, Liz, yours coming out right? Yep, okay. Yours worked? Yes, okay. Awesome. All right, well, let's write it down and then practice doing the other ones. So if you guys could, go ahead. We're doing 3 decimal places here, guys. So let's practice putting this in. Yes? Scratch that out. We're changing to decimals. We're changing to decimals. So when you get to algebra 2, they're going to tell you not to change things into decimals. Oops. On these yellow calculators, if you hit the double arrow before you hit enter, then it'll go straight into decimal. Ooh, that one came out to exactly 9. That's interesting. If you haven't done C yet, I challenge you to do it in your head. I challenge you to do part C in your head. At least figure out what the top part of that fraction is. What is 5 plus the square root of 100? What is the square root of 100? Square root of 100 is 10. So 5 plus 10 up top. This is just a 15 on the top. 15 over 10, which is 1.5. You could type it in your calculator, you're going to get the same answer. I can tell I can't do part D in my head right now because I don't know what the square root of 21 is. That's not one of those nice numbers, those perfect squares. So for part D, I'm going to need the calculator. I'll give you a couple more seconds to finish those up while I sing the song once or twice more. I can tell you're not a fan of my singing. Should have brought some instruments in here. You don't like the song? Oh. Well, we could try it to another song. Supposedly there's another song that works for this also. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right. You guys ready to put it all together? All right. So here we go. This is the moment you've been all been waiting for. We're going to put all this together into one big old thing, okay? And when we do this, we're going to do it in kind of 3 steps. 3 steps. Not including finding A, B, and C. Let's go ahead and write down what A and B and C are. A is 1, B is 2, C is negative 15. And then let's write down x equals, and I'm going to write out this whole formula, but I'm going to leave blank spaces where all the variables are. Opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's my formula. I just left out all the numbers, or all the letters, all the variables, and I left a blank space in their place. And now I'm going to go back and fill in the values for A, B, and C in the right spots. Okay? I will tell you, if you walk into one of my pre-calculus classes, if you're a freshman, you'll be taking pre-calc your senior year. Anytime I'm using the quadratic formula, I will always set it up like this first. You will see me do this every single time. I try to convince my pre-calculus students to do it. Many of them refuse, and they're getting wrong answers quite frequently from this. Okay, so set it up with the parentheses first, and then go back and fill in the letters. Okay, so I know that b goes here and here, so x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Oops. All over 2a. Did I get those numbers in the right place? I didn't the first time. I made a mistake. When I do this, I remember B will always go here and here, A will always go here and here, and C will go out at the end. That's how I remember this. I don't sing the song. I know the format, and I know B goes here and here, A goes here and here, and C goes at the end. I'm more of a spatial person than a musical person. All right, that's step 1. In step 2, we're going to simplify this thing. This is going to get much shorter. You're going to have a negative 2 up top, plus or minus square root, and let's turn that into a single number. We practiced doing b squared minus 4ac in our calculator a minute ago. That was at the very end of the page before this. So if you need to use your calculator, if you've got some mental math skills, go ahead and use those. But figure out what 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 15 is. Turn that into a single number. Two squared is 4. This is going to end up positive. 4 times 15 is 60. I believe it's 64. Does that sound right? Yes. And also simplify the bottom. What is 2 times 1? 2. And there we are. We're ready for step 3. Step 3, we're going to just put this into our calculator now. We haven't gone over this yet, but how do you put a plus or minus into your calculator? Trick question. You don't. You put it in with a plus first, and then you go back and change it to a minus. You're going to get 2 answers. Okay? So when I type this in, I'm going to do it with the plus first. And then you guys know how to go back and change something in your calculator, right? And I'll just go back and change it to a minus and hit enter again. Some of you may be able to pull this off in your head. If you're feeling confident doing that, go ahead. Otherwise, put it in your calculator. Let's see if I can do this. Negative square root of 64 is 8. So negative 2 plus 8 is 6. Over 2 is 3. Negative 2 minus 8 is negative 10. Over 2 is negative 5. Check my work here. Nice. For those of you with the dark blue calculators, you guys know how to go back to your previous thing. You know how to go back to your previous thing and change it, so you don't have to type it all in again. Can I borrow this? So on these ones, you can just go up here. So this is, all right, so let me type it in here. So here's my first one, negative 2 plus square root 64, and the square root and the top, and then divided by 2, okay? So there I hit enter and I get my first answer, 3. And then look up here, if you've got one of these style of calculators, you can just use your arrow key and go back up to here, and then change that to a minus and hit enter again, and that'll give you your other answer. So you don't have to keep going back and typing it in. So don't hit clear when you get your first answer. Just use your arrow key to go up and change that plus into a minus. All right, that's really it. If you guys are getting that, then you got the gist of it. Go ahead and finish up the rest of these. Some of these are going to turn into some decimals, and that's okay. Step 1 is to put everything in the right places. Step 2, simplify. Step 3, stick it in your calculator and get some answers. Okay. I'm going to work through one more here. And if you're getting the same answer, then go ahead and move on. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Are you guys comfortable with what happens when we have a negative 4? What is negative 4? Or you could read that as the opposite of negative 4. What's the opposite of negative 4? Positive 4. I'll be with you in just a minute. Let me finish this one up. 16 and 84. So what I'm seeing as I'm coming around and helping people out is common mistakes are not including the negatives on A, B, and C. So number 7, A is positive 2, but B is negative 3. C is negative 20. Those negatives have to be on there, and you got to make sure you use those. Second most common thing is just typing something into the calculator wrong, leaving parentheses out. I'll be around to answer questions. You don't have to worry about number 9 at the bottom of the page. If you get done with 5 through 8 and you're getting matching answers, go ahead and grab the assignment and get started.